Hello everyone, Cole Nelson here. I'm one of your admins here at the Manichaeism Religion of Light group. I was recently reinstated, this is my second time being an admin, for this group after the resignation of Al-Hassan, who stepped aside as admin. And since becoming admin, an administrator again, one thing I have increasingly gotten is questions concerning specific posts by some of our newest members. Now, we have grown as a group. We have over doubled our numbers since April because of a large influx of individuals who belong to the Ahmadi religion of light and love. Now, as an admin here, I think it's important that I say we all have our reasons for being here, our reasons for being interested in the religion of light, that is Manichaeism. Most people before the influx of the Ahmadi, I would say, were more or less free-thinking individuals, scholarly individuals who had like a scholarly interest in Manichaeism, or who just had an interest in alternative religious traditions, or perhaps at most maybe considered themselves somewhat Gnostic, like a Christian Gnostic. Very few of our members actually identify as Manichaean. I'm somewhat of an exception. I consider myself to be a Manichaean. I recognize that Mani was an apostle of Jesus Christ. I believe that his syzygos, or his divine twin, together with that, he fulfills the promise of Jesus to send us the Holy Spirit, who will teach us all things. And I believe he left an authority, that is the archegos, the first one being Mar Sisinos, or Sisine, the next one being Mar Inai. And that's kind of like the papacy. It was an institution, the archegosate, that was designed to guide the Manichaean Church in the absence of Mani. The archegos, in the absence of Mani, was imbued or invested with authority to settle doctrinal disputes, matters of discipline, that sort of thing. And we believe that this was essential to the nature of the Manichaean Church as Mani envisioned it. Now, of course, there is no archegos today, as far as anyone I know is aware. And we don't know when the office of archegos went vacant exactly. We know the names of several people who held the office through the 8th century. But after that, after the archegos leaves Iraq and heads to Sogdiana, we really lose track of who the archegos was and what became of the office. The Ahmadis, who are with us, are a branch of follow a branch of Islam, a branch of Shia Islam, that likewise believes that messengers of God leave their people after conveying their revelation with an authoritative leader or figure who has the authority to settle disputes, clarify doctrine, and etc. That figure is called the Imam. Shia Muslims believe that Ali, Muhammad's son-in-law by marriage to his daughter Fatima, was the first imam. That is, Muhammad, they believe, made him in a specific event his successor. When he said something to the effect of, who I am master of, Ali is master of. Okay? So they believe that Muhammad named his successor, much as Christ, they would say, named Simon Peter as more or less his representative on earth, and Mani made Marcinos his representative on earth. They would say that Muhammad, too, being in this line of prophets, which the Ahmadi religion will say includes Mani, they will say that as part of this, he also left an authoritative representative. Now, being part of the Twelver tradition of Islam, the Ahmadis, from what I understand now from the history of Islam that I've been studying and trying to understand the motives for the Ahmadis to be here and their belief system, there was a series of imams, and it was understood that the imam had to be a descendant of the previous imam, okay? With the exception that I think the third and fourth imams, Hassan and Hussein, were brothers, but this is explained because, could be happen this way, because they were both under Muhammad's cloak and directly part of the Ahlul Bayt, the family or house of Muhammad. So it was possible in that instance for it to travel from one brother to another, but normally it is a lineal descendant of the reigning imam. Now this worked through, I want to say, the latter part of the 9th century, when what you have is the reigning imam, the 11th imam, apparently dies, leaving a very young son who is hidden. It's called the occultation, okay? The hidden, like a hidden imam, like the hidden 12th imam. And during this period, of course, there is no real direct contact with the imam. There are people who claim to have contact with him in the beginning. But years and years and years pass, and ultimately there is no replacement imam. Okay, you have, and more power seems to become invested in the theologians and jurists among the Twelver branch of Islam. Well, the Twelver branch of Islam always, of course, seems to believe that the Imam will return, be the promised Mahdi, or the Haim or Kaim, Haim I think it would be pronounced, the riser, okay, an apocalyptic figure, who will sort of set the religion and the world right. Okay, now this isn't, I mean, in Manichaeism, obviously in Chinese, for instance, Manichaeism, which was involved in numerous revolts, there was certainly apocalyptic millenarian, end times beliefs involving things like the possible return of Mani, the Lord of Lights, that sort of thing that Moni Zhao or the White Lotus sect, mixture kind of Manichaeism and Buddhism, taught. So that's not entirely dissimilar. But the Ahmadi believe that Ahmed Al-Hassan, a figure by the name of Ahmed Al-Hassan, is the promised Mahdi, the riser, the new Imam, okay? And that another figure named Al-Sadiq, Abu Al-Sadiq, is like his successor, the second Imam. I think there's going to be 12 more Imams. I don't know for certain their understanding, but these are apocalyptic figures as we are in the end times and an important time in history. They believe that the reason that I believe they believe. Now, if I'm wrong on any of this, please, my friends in the Ahmadi religion, as I'm trying to explain to other members of this group who are perhaps confused by your presence, to the best of my limited ability as an alien from your tradition and backgrounds. My understanding is that part of how you believe that Ahmed Al-Hassan can be the Mahdi, the new Imam, and the riser, is because of the soul family tree. Instead of this strict lineal descent of father to son, when it comes to the office of the imamate, of Imam, it is enough that there be a spiritual descent and succession, because Ahmed Al-Hassan has the same soul as some of his predecessors. For instance, the same soul as Ali, right? And maybe as the same soul as Hussein. I do not know. But among all of these things, in the spiritual soul family tree, you've included Jesus and Mani. I believe I read on your website that you believe that Abu Al-Sadiq, the second Imam, is a soul, shares the same soul, more or less, as a soul descendant of Mani, who is a soul descendant of Jesus. And according to your understanding. Now, as Manichaeans, the idea of a soul inheritance is not extremely far-fetched. Manichaeans were Traducian. They believed that souls were inherited. They did not believe that they were directly fashioned, as it were, by God, because God is not going to infuse a soul and entrap it in a physical body. The goal of the Manichaean religion is liberation. Rather, souls were inherited from one's parents, more or less. They were infused into the body along with the crude matter that they accompanied in the conception act. Manichaeans being more or less materialists. But it's hard to, only the most spiritually advanced people are even thought to have their souls perfectly cohere at death. And that usually to ascend to the new aeon. The elect, one of the main goals of living an elect life, of adhering to the commandments and the three seals, is that we collect ourselves, that we collect the light in us and become conformed to the new man. We become the new man, a being capable of taking our light that is in us, fashioning it into a concrete identity that it can at the time of death literally escape the bounds of matter, travel through the calm of glory, and into the light, to the ships of light, and to the new aeon. Could beings function like bodhisattva and become recycled into the cosmos. The idea of coming back into matter is one that is a little bizarre, certainly to a Manichaean ear with the Manichaean goals or mindset, since the goal is to escape matter. But I mean, the principle is not inconceivable of a soul family tree or a soul inheritance. There are things that concern me about the fact that, you know, I mean, obviously they're claiming. I've enjoyed my conversation with them, and I'm still myself. I consider all claims on truth very seriously, and am researching and trying to understand them and evaluate their claims. Certainly, one of the great things that Manichaeism suffers from today is the absence of a figure like the Archegos. And it is something sorely needed, I think, for religious people, or for religion to survive and function, to have a divinely mandated authority that people can trust to guide them. So I'm evaluating these claims, and I'm enjoying my conversations with the Ahmadi. But I have concerns, especially as a person who's trying to be faithful to the Manichaean tradition, which, very interestingly, you know, the Ahmadi will claim that they are one I was speaking to said that they believe themselves to be the true Manichaeans, which, of course, if they believe Muhammad was in a line of prophets that included Jesus and Mahdi, of course, they would have to believe that they're the true Manichaeans, the true Christians, the true Jews, in the sense that they do everything better than believe better or more correctly than the Jews or the Christians or the Manichaeans. Yes, you know, they would have to believe they believe better than the people after the time of Muhammad, who continued to believe in the religion of light, because that there were still people after the time of Muhammad who continued to claim to be Manichaeans and adhere to the religion of light. In fact, in Iran, after the Islam overthrew the Sassanid Empire, the Umayyad Caliphate was very tolerant of different of non-Muslims in many instances, and the Manichaeans who were in exile or had fled, many of them returned to Iran during the early Muslim period, but that changed with the downfall of the Umayyad Caliphate and the emergence of the Abbasid Caliphate, which, interestingly, in its origins, may have been a Shia movement of some sorts, but didn't really live up to those hopes, from my understanding, in that it ended up more Sunni in the end. But I digress. As we're trying to understand this, as we're trying to understand what brings the Ahmadi here and how we should interact with them, and we have to be very careful of that if we value truth, right? Anyone who's seeking truth. I know most people here are only here for scholarly reasons, to understand what Manichaeism was or believes. But the Ahmadi here are presenting a challenge to anyone who is Manichaean, or even who is Christian, or who is Jewish, or any sort of faith that has a divine revealing figure. They're presenting a challenge that they are the fulfillment, more or less, of that religion. Just as Manichaeism claimed in many ways to be the fulfillment of the revelations of Jesus, Zoroaster, and Buddha, the Ahmadi will claim that their faith is the fulfillment and correct interpretation of Christianity, Judaism, Manichaeism, and the Islam that came before it. And we need to evaluate these claims if we are sincere religious people. So I have not, for instance, banned all of their posts. I have not excised them from the group on the grounds that they are proselytizing, as some have asked, as I've been asked about, because some people here are here just to learn scholarly or interested in history, and they don't want to encounter people pushing an actual religious movement. And I'm here now as an admin, and I'm overtly myself, hopeful that people come to Manichaeism. So I myself am a sort of proselytizer. But so I want to get to my concerns. What is it why are we not members ourselves of the Ahmadi religion of light and love? And this is something, it could change, but right now, I have some very serious concerns as a Manichaean, what I believe, that seems to differ, or I don't understand how it doesn't differ, we'll say. One big difference, is obviously the Apostle Paul. You may have seen videos shared by the Ahmadi that as is typical of Muslims, has argued that the Apostle Paul was a corrupter of early Christianity, that he is more or less the font and root of all the apostasy, more or less, or adulteration of Christ's teachings. They might say something as 12 or similar of Abu Bakr, the first caliph, as Sunni believe, because they believe that he usurped more or less Ali's rightful place and was leading the Ummah in a sense astray by doing that. But when it comes to the Apostle Paul, well, we have no explicit writings of Mani to the effect that Paul was apostle that I can find. We do know that Mani utilized his epistles. We do know that he styled his own after those of St. Paul in their greetings, in their form. We know he drew heavily on the Pauline concepts of the old and new man. And that's very important, I think, the concept of the new man, because that is really the goal in many ways of our faith is to because we're mixtures of light and darkness, is to refine ourselves and to become our light selves, to collect ourselves, like I was referring to earlier, and to subdue more or less the darkness in us that is the old man, and become fully who we are supposed to be, the new man in the image of Christ, or what have you, our light selves. And Manny will utilize this terminology. Now, it's possible. It's possible. It's possible, as one of them has told me, that there might be good and true things in Paul's writings mixed with a lot of error, and that Manny could have used these things, right? But it would seem that if that were the case, that Paul was a corrupter, that the Manichaeans would not have used his writings without caveats, warnings, or held him in such high esteem as seems to have been the case, for instance, in West Africa, where we see, for instance, in Augustine's debate with Fortunatus, Fortunatus just marshals Pauline text after Pauline text in defense of Manichaean doctrine. He's utilizing Paul over and over, and we know that the Manichaeans and many Gnostics in general had a reputation for relying heavily on Paul. Valentinus, for instance, claimed to be a disciple of Theudas, who he claimed was a disciple of St. Paul. And what I think is important, actually, is Paul's conversion. You see, one thing the Ahmadi will point out is that Paul did not know, the Jesus of Nazareth, the person, during his earthly ministry. Paul's conversion to them is sketchy. He was a persecutor of the early Christian community, converted on the road of Damascus. But what is the substance of that conversion? It was this, Jesus, he was blinded on the road, going to persecute Christians, and Jesus, this divine theophany, more or less, this manifestation, right, of Jesus, said to him, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" As Manichaeans, we believe in the suffering Jesus, right? Jesus patabilis, right? That is in everything in this realm of mixture. He is he is the light, right? Crucified everywhere in the material world, which we call the cross of light. So when Jesus says to Paul, "Why are you persecuting me?" identifying with his people, with the church, that is, in very many ways, captures a bit of our understanding of who the Jesus we really adore, worship, and honor is. That is that light, in everything, that is suffering. And so we would say that Paul encountered the truest, the highest, the greatest Jesus, Jesus the luminous, Jesus the splendor, the same Jesus who we believe taught human beings to eat of the tree of knowledge and to see their real condition as beings of light trapped in material bodies. Now, the Ahmadi religion certainly does not believe that Jesus was the serpent. They believe that was Iblis, and that Adam and Eve did sin by eating of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, contrary to what we as Manichaeans believe. So, like I said, we believe that Paul's conversion, in many ways, that would seem to parallel strongly what we believe as Manichaeans, that Jesus identifies with beings in the material world, human beings, even animals, plants, and when pain is afflicted on them, you're hurting Jesus. Whatever you do to the least of these, you do also to me. Mar El-Kasaios, the prophet El-Kasai, Mani talks about an episode where he took the dirt of the ground in his hands and spreading it on himself said, "This is the body of my Lord," right? It's the body and blood of my Lord. This understanding of sort of a pantheistic Jesus, identified with the light in material things, is part of our religion. And I don't really understand how it could fit, for instance, with Tawheed. All Muslims believe, and the religion of the Ahmadi religion seems to be no exception from their webpage, believe very strongly in the principle of Tawheed. That is the absolute oneness of God, the absolute unity of God, which is why, for instance, they reject things like the Christian concept of the Trinity. But what would they say to me if I said that human beings, the light in human beings, is consubstantial with Allah? They'd probably kill me. I don't know. Some Muslims would. I doubt the Ahmadi would. They seem to be a very loving, peaceable branch, but not like maybe some of the, and forgive me for even saying that, that was probably, but I'm just saying it would seem to be blasphemy, right? It would seem to be blasphemous to I would think, to most believers in Tawheed to say that the light in me, I think some Sufis may say this, is consubstantial with the light, that is God. And God is everywhere here, diffused within the material world. Yes, God is one, in the sense that there is one Father of us all, from whom we all are a part of and from whom we emanate. That is the Father of greatness, the principle of light. God is one in that sense, and we only worship one God, even though we believe in a sense in two, because we believe in an eternal principle of evil. But we only worship one God. But we are consubstantial with him, according to our light selves, which I don't know how that can mesh with the doctrine of Tawheed. Now maybe they can tell me or explain to me if that's the case. But if it doesn't, and this is the doctrine of the two principles three times, and the reality of the divine light coming into mixture with evil, the realm of darkness attacked the realm of light, and the divine beings that were emanations, not creations, emanations from the Father of greatness, and brought them into mixture, is a core doctrine of Manichaeism. And if that doesn't jive with the Ahmadi religion of light, then it is hard to see how the Ahmadi religion can be a legitimate successor of the Prophet Mahdi. Although, I will say, I've had some surprises. They do believe some things certainly in common with us. For instance, I've learned that they believe in reincarnation, not only human to human, but even human to animal, like Pontius Pilate incarnated into a lion, to plant. These are things we believe in. They believe in, there are some, surface level similarities. For instance, they pray 5 times. In between Muslims in general, Manichaeans, they pray 5 times. Just today, praying towards Mecca, we pray 4 times to 7 times if we're elect, praying towards the sun or the moon. We, like them, have a holy month of fasting, which is the month of Bima. Theirs is the month of Ramadan. We both practice taqiyya, which is dissimulation, in fear for our lives, or to preserve our lives. We can deny our adherence to certain things. They have a sort of a serpent seed doctrine with Cain, and we recognize Shatil as the godly line, and we do recognize the mixture of demonic lines and demons within the human family tree. We relied heavily on the Enochian literature, for instance, which is replete with all sorts of things like that. Mahdi used it in composing his Book of Giants. I was very surprised in reading a piece of literature that came into my hands from one of them about what they thought the scandalous teaching of Jesus was. Now, I'm not going to share with you what that is. Only I will say, because I think, if accurate, it would only be for the very spiritually mature. I have heard in secondary literature Manichaeans being slandered with the accusation that they practice this. And it would make sense from some of our theological principles. Like I talked about earlier, the inheritance of the soul, that light is in material things. And our dietary practice is all about reinforcing the light in us, and not so that we can keep the darkness at bay. That's why, for instance, the vegetarian diet that the elect, the vegan diet the elect are supposed to eat, is all about. So I was very surprised that Ahmed Al-Hassan would be aware of this possibility. I was very surprised. And that is something that keeps me considering some possibilities, because it takes a lot of boldness first to say that Jesus would be teaching this. And second, it's a very obscure accusation, I would say. So it either represents a high level of being informed on Ahmed Al-Hassan's part, or, I mean, one could argue, a certain being divinely informed. I don't know. So I continue to study this issue. But I want the people of the group to know who the Ahmadi are, that they are this Shia branch of Islam that believes in that the Mahdi, the riser that has come, that the imamate has been more or less reestablished, that there's always a representative of God to lead the faithful, that this isn't, this is not entirely dissimilar to our faith, but it is different, and we have to be discerning insofar as what they teach is in any way, shape, or form identical or close or approximates what we teach. And I want to allow them to continue to be here. I want to encourage people to study their claims, because we all need to encourage truth. But I also want people to know that this is a place still for the study of historic Manichaeism, that this is a place where people who are just here for scholarly interest can come without, being actively subjected to a high degree of proselytization. Some is to be expected. If a person believes truth and is trying to convey truth to you, that's going to happen. But I want everyone here to feel like they're not pressured, and I want everyone to feel welcome, and I want people to be ensured that this is a place for a discussion of the revelation proclaimed by the Prophet Mahdi. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments or critiques, especially to the Ahmadi members of this group, who I want to ensure are equally welcomed in this group, as we welcome everyone who has an interest in or makes a claim on the Manichaean tradition, that they are welcome here, and we value the light that's in them, and their contributions to discussion. But I want everyone to know that they're free to approach me with any concerns and with any questions, and I would value if I spoke ill at all or incorrectly on anything, any corrections. I do not claim infallibility or to be a representative of God in all humility. So I am more than happy to be informed. The Father of Greatness bless you, and thank you for listening.